Are you tired of self-doubt holding you back? Have you ever wished you could have the confidence to face your fears, go after your wildest dreams, and the tools necessary to live your best life? Hey there, amazing listeners. I'm your host and author of How to Grasp Confidence and Own Your Power. And I've made it my mission to help you break free from self-doubt and embrace confidence. Subscribe now and join us as we unlock the secrets to unshakable self-assurance. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Grasp Confidence Podcast. Today, I am your host, Tara LaFon-Gooch, and it's not every day you meet somebody as inspirational as my next guest. When I think of Bonnie, I think of someone who ambitiously goes after her dreams, but was it always that way, right? So that's kind of how I like to get to know my guests. I like to take them through the whole journey and take you on the journey with us as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce my next guest. Bonnie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tara. It's great to be here and to know about the great work you're doing. Confidence is the big game changer for so many people, especially women.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about you because, oh my gosh, author, TEDx speaker, you've just this accomplished career that you have. And I would love to know a little bit more about everything that you're doing right now.
Well, thank you, Tara. I think one of the most important things to know is that my journey, none of it has been planned. It wasn't as if I had this master idea when I was younger in my 20s and now I'm in my 60s. The work I do now, the main work I do is I train high-level executive and personal assistants around the world. I'm based in Florida, but my work has taken me to 13 countries and 38 states. And I spend a lot of time physically on the road and doing webinars right from here, from my home office in front of a camera. I've written 2 books, Be the Ultimate Assistant and Staff Matters. And those, I identify as a writer first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And both books were written out of frustration. They were written out to fulfill a need that I saw was pretty gaping in the workplace. First of all, the book about how to be a great assistant, because I was searching for that myself. And then the second book, Staff Matters, about this post-pandemic workplace and how can we move forward in a way that's collaborative and cooperative in an environment that can feel for many as fragmented and fractured. So I would say that my work is very much about solving problems, and the problems that I see that tend to be very relatable to the people who follow me. I'm very active on social media, and so I write a great deal about workplace bullying and sexual harassment and closing the wage gap, the whole money issue. And interestingly enough, those 3 issues impact women most dominantly. It's not that they don't impact men. Of course they do, but women are the primary targets of those issues. So, essentially my work is about empowering the world's women, because it's the women who are 95 to 97% of the world's executive assistants and personal assistants. But I began as the personal assistant to a movie star, to Olympia Dukakis, who won her Academy Award for Moonstruck, and she was in the film Steel Magnolias. So my beginnings were in show business, and in a million years, I never thought that Olympia and I would work together for 25 years, but it just happened. Again, it wasn't planned. It was just, she continued to have a need and I continued to need a job, and I was really good at it and I enjoyed doing it. And, as time went by, I kept getting invited to speak and teach, and that pulled me in that way, all on a backdrop of sitting in a very bad marriage, which began when I was 21 years old and lasted 27 years. So I know in your journey, this is true, that really great things can coincide with really awful things.
Ooh.
And they're happening simultaneously, and each day becomes a set of decisions about, well, what am I focusing on today, and how am I going to wrap my head around all the things that are going on? On one hand, I'm running around in a limousine in New York City, going with Olympia interviews, and then on the other hand, coming home to a battlefield, not physical, but mental and emotional abuse. So there's a lot to unpack. And I mean, how can you get to be in your 60s and not have a lot to unpack? Everybody's got a story. And the only thing unique about mine is that it's mine.
Wow. There is so much to unpack there, Bonnie, and I think a lot of people, when they think about adversity, they think of it as being separate from the life that they want. And what you hinted in is that sometimes it's intertwined, right? Maybe there's a lesson that we have to learn there. Maybe there's, something that, a developmental thing that we need to understand in order to get to that next level. But sometimes it's, we think about something as taking away from our purpose, but maybe it's actually a part of it, or we need it for some lesson. Your marriage of 27 years was not pleasant, and yet you were still trying to be this phoenix that was rising from the ashes, going after her best life, gaining success, working with famous people, famous yourself in the process, and coming home to a battlefield.
It was so contradictory at times. I would lay in bed at night and feel like, am I in the twilight zone? Because the people in my work life were reflecting messages to me that I was capable and competent and smart and funny and resourceful and filled with solutions. And other assistants were coming to me and asking me for advice. And I helped start the organization in New York City called New York Celebrity Assistants. And the voice that began in my head as a whisper started getting louder and louder and louder as my community was reflecting back what their thoughts and feelings were. So, the whole issue of confidence is fascinating to me because I really see it as a team sport. I see it as a group activity, that confidence doesn't happen in a solitary way. For me anyway, it for sure happened in community with other people. And all of that was contrasted with, a lot of marriages fail. And I think you're really lucky if you can keep going on the same track for years and years and years. But in my case, my husband did not like all of that attention being paid to me and would say things like, who do you think you are to write a book? Wow. So I share that with you and your audience as a vivid example of the kinds of messages that women get that eat at your confidence. So on one hand, your confidence is getting built up. And on the other hand, no, You don't get to have it because with many women I speak with, their experience from a very young age has been about being judged, criticized, ridiculed. We're socialized when we're young that our bodies are very much being, looked at and judged. Our clothing, how we conduct ourselves. And my goodness, these days with social media and, smartphones and all the editing ability for, editing graphics, I really do feel that the pressure on women to be this idealized picture, a certain weight, a certain look, is really hard. It's very, very hard to deal with. And so that's what I was handling.
Absolutely. You mentioned something that I'm a firm believer in. We're very aligned, that confidence is not a solo sport. And I talk about this in my book as well. No matter what your potential or purpose is, if you're in the wrong environment, it will hinder your growth, period. I mean, again, I use the example of an apple seed, Bonnie. So if we take an apple seed and we just throw it on the asphalt, it may land in a crack and it may, take action and become a little seedling, but the environment's not suitable for long-term growth, right? It could be run over. It's kind of a dangerous area if you're a little plant. You're not going to have adequate soil or nutrition, right? You're going to be, limited on your growth. Take that same apple seed. You plant it in cultivated soil. You give it nutrition. You give it sunlight, a place to grow, water, and all of a sudden that apple seed sprouts into action to become an actual tree, which is what it's designed to be. But it's the environment that we put the seed in that matters. It's not necessarily the seed's fault if it doesn't take action to become that tree. And it's not to say that seed doesn't have the same potential. They do. They're both created equal. They both have that potential. But in reality is that environment. And then we think about our environment as human beings. Who are we hanging around? Who are we in relationships with? Who are our friends? I mean, we think about all these things. It's the same thing. We all have that seed of potential, but what's our environment? Is it conducive for growth? What do you think about that?
It makes me think about Jim Rohn's famous quote that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that is so true. So the question becomes for all people is what are you going to do when that adversity hits? What's your decision? And do we let it defeat us? And do we allow the depression and the sadness? And, I meet women all the time and men, we eat too much, we drug too much, we starve ourselves, we eat too much, we can get really depressed and succumb to that, or decide, no, I'm not going to allow that adversity to have that much power over me. I looked at my life and I saw it running by me. I mean, my goodness, 27 years is a lot of years. I wish I'd acted earlier when looking back, but it is what it is. And therefore the question now in 2024 is, what do I do now? And so that, Tara, is what I do every single day. If we fast forward to today, it's what can I do today to use these experiences that I've had globally and personally and use them for good. use them to help others, use them to manifest what my mom used to just say to me when I would fret over, what I was going to do with my life. And she would say, Bonnie, just try to leave the world a little better than the way you found it. And so when I get worked up, I think of that and I think, you know what, let me just do one simple thing and try to make every day as productive as I possibly can. And that's my goal every day. I mean, at this point, my partner, Robert, and I have 6 grandkids with a 7th one on the way. And that's my why. That's what keeps me motivated, because the work I do is very much about the workplace and improving the workplace and fixing what's broken in this workplace, all with an eye towards these grandkids of ours to be in the workplace at some point. Because I want them to find a better situation than what many people have right now.
Absolutely, right? I think that's the simplest definition of leadership, is that leave it better than you found it, right? Regardless of what it is, if you're walking down the street and you see a piece of trash on the side of the road, leave it better than you found it, right?
Oh, you do that too.
I do. My husband always picks on me. I should probably have like a garbage bag that I just keep around me. I'm always picking.
I actually do that sometimes when I'm out for a long walk.
It makes a difference. And I like to think it makes a difference. And, this goes for anything, right? So if you meet someone, leave it better than you found it. Yeah. Give them a compliment. Open the door for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. Oh my gosh. I love doing that actually. When I'm at a restaurant or out on a subway or wherever, especially with women, to, I'll say, those are really cool earrings, like to a total stranger, or love those shoes, or, just something that's authentic and real. And what happens to their face is so real. There was a friend shared with me this idea, which you and your listeners are welcome to use, but I love doing this, especially on long flights. Mm-hmm. When I get on the airplane, there's inevitably a flight attendant who greets you, welcome to our flight today. And I will bring a small gift bag filled with like wrapped candies with the handwritten just thank you. And I'll just, whoever is greeting us at the jetway, I'll say, this is for you and the team. I know you work really hard. I want you to know I really appreciate the work you do. Enjoy. And the look on their face is why I do that. I think, and it's germane to our conversation today, it's confidence building to hear from somebody else that they see you, yes. They understand what you do, or they're trying to, and they respect you. They respect you and they're acknowledging you. And I think that's a huge confidence builder. So I'm a big believer in authentic compliments to whomever you can. Little kids doing the right thing, the teenager on the subway who gave up his seat for a pregnant lady. I'll say it loud enough for other people to hear. I'll say, I think that was really cool what you did. And I know your mom would be really proud of you. Just like something just simple.
It doesn't have to be complicated, right?
I don't think so.
You could change somebody's day and they may be in a bad mood. And you know what? I like to think, maybe before that interaction, they were having a bad day. And then all of a sudden I come up and it's selfless. Yeah. Right? It's not with an agenda. The point of it is that you just want to elevate someone else or something else, right? So again, leave it better than you found it. And we can do these practices daily. We should do them daily. And you know what? People feel that energy and it does build confidence. Yeah. I'm a huge believer that Confidence is not that solo game like you talked about earlier. It's very much a team sport. And if you can elevate someone else's confidence by giving them an authentic compliment, just as you said, wow, they're really going to be grateful for that. And it could change their day. It could change their outlook of.
It could change a lot. And I've seen that in real time with actual humans in the workplace. Another example, which is a powerful one, is the idea that in a meeting, in a staff meeting, to have each other's backs. It's much better for me to call you out in a meeting and say, before we start the meeting, I just want to call attention to the work Tara did on that project last week. Tara, you really saved my butt and I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll do it again. And I'd want you on my team anytime. You know what I mean? And to do this in front of the whole staff, that's more powerful than you doing it about yourself. Like we as women especially don't feel comfortable saying, did everybody notice the great job I did on that project? We want to feel like that if we work really hard, that we're going to be acknowledged. And it doesn't always work that way, especially in 2024 when we're in this virtual remote environment where we're trying to work over webcams. But I encourage my students to do it in person, in writing, in a virtual meeting. I think that's super powerful it's for team building and as a confidence builder. I think it's one of the fastest ways to make that happen.
Absolutely. And you and I are also very aligned on leadership too. That acknowledgement of what others are doing to contribute, right? And the book I wrote, How to Grasp Confidence, which is what this podcast is named after. Actually, I'm starting another book for leadership. So the first book is about personal development. The second book is using that same framework for leadership. G for gratitude. Having and expressing gratitude for your employees and acknowledging the contributions that they have made. Step one. Step one has nothing to do with KPIs or making more money or lean this, that, or the other, or some other metric. It's let's start with humanity approach. Let's start with that gratitude. And I've found that when I've used it as a practice, that it has really changed the game. So imagine starting every meeting with an expression of gratitude. How would that change? It would set people's mindsets in a different way, right? It would get people open to whatever it is that you're saying and receptive and eager to listen for more. But it's through an authentic lens, right? And I think that's so important that we're really talking about elevating emotional intelligence. And it doesn't just happen on a one-on-one level, because when we do this, it radiates off of us. Have you ever experienced that, Bonnie, where you're confident and you're a confident leader, and then you're acknowledging your employees and your staff, and then all of a sudden they become more confident too?
It's a win-win situation. Positive begets positive and negative begets negative. The converse is also true, is that when people are working really hard and you do not acknowledge them, that you just treat it like it's business as usual, and then the feeling in the staff is one of, why should I work so hard? No one cares. No one cares about me. We talk about the staff as the backbone of the company and right arms to managers. Well, if that is true, then we really should be taking much better care of the humans who are in our care as leaders. In my book, Staff Matters, I spend a great deal of time writing about that. And chapter 16 is one of my favorites. It's called Sex. And it's about gender differences in the workplace and how, frankly, women experience the workplace differently than men. And so what are the ways to tap into what is it that they, as individual contributors, what drives them? What do they value? It's not the same for every person. It's not one size fits all. So, the burden, frankly, in 2024 is on leaders to work very hard to stay connected to their teams. I love the saying, connection before correction. That's,
that's a game changer.
It's leaving it better than the way you found it is one tenet of leadership.
Yep.
Certainly connection before correction is another vital one, that people can't hear constructive feedback unless they actually feel like there's a connection there.
That is so much wisdom, honestly. And we don't practice this enough, right? But I know from my own experience, you are 100% correct, because I remember being a top performer and not getting any acknowledgement, but not only not getting acknowledgement, getting the brunt end of things, right? Yeah. I remember my daughter, she was 5, 6 years old at the time. She took away my phone one day after I picked her up from work, and I said, "Where'd you hide my phone?" And she said, "I don't want you to have it back because mommy's boss yells at you. And I don't want anybody to yell at my mommy." It's not just the person that's on that other receiving end that feels it.
Oh.
Little eyes are watching.
Yeah. In my workshops, I put up a slide of my granddaughter and imitating her mom working. And my message is, our kids are watching. They're watching, they're hearing everything. That's why I put such emphasis on my grandkids, because they are the future. And why are we here if not to influence positively, starting with the people who are closest to us, our family, our kids? That's what makes sense to me anyway. And, as I move around the world and speak with assistants and leaders and HR professionals and recruiters and business school professors, what I hear, Tara, is that it's complicated out there. And a complicated workplace and world generates anxiety and stress and worry. We have a troubling job situation right now, and there's all this talk about artificial intelligence and what is that going to mean? So we've got a lot of forces in play in the workplace. And so as human beings, in general, we do resist change. So we're all having to manage that uncertainty on a day in, day out basis. I think our only choice is to come together, to discuss it, to have town halls, to have conversations. What I say to leaders is, you don't have to have all the answers. What you do need to do, though, is talk to your people. Talk to the people who are already on the payroll, who you spent a lot of money hiring. And ideally, we want to retain those people and fully leverage them. Doing that is a real confidence builder. I know that for sure.
Absolutely. And, when I think of a confident leader, I think of somebody who trains their team because they're not threatened. I think of a confident leader, I think, is somebody who's grateful and appreciative because, again, they're not threatened by their team. Somebody who is grooming up and coming managers and progressing talent along, not suppressing it, right? So it goes beyond self and can ultimately transform an organization and empower people to believe in a company's mission to believe that, they're working toward a purpose, that they're a part of a cohesive unit, that without them, they're that missing piece of the puzzle. So everybody feels intricately related and connected to each other. And you do this on enough consistency, all of a sudden that scale starts growing. And all of a sudden you have a really unified team with less sick days, increased employee retention, increased ability to attract top talent. This is not some fluffy concept. I want to really emphasize that this is leadership transformation in action, right? I mean, this is huge.
Yeah, the return on investment is ginormous. It has real value to the bottom line. And the main investment is time and focus and intention. It doesn't even really cost money. I mean, what we're talking about are, an attention to one-on-one conversations. It's interesting. It's a very interesting time. And the reality is, though, that most leaders do not get much, if any, leadership training. You don't magically become a manager of people. It doesn't, it's a learned skill and it requires training. And so part of my mission is to support companies to offer this kind of management leadership training, specifically about what are the ways to manage a team, either in person, which is different than managing people who are, hundreds of miles away, and they're communicating only on a webcam. That's why, there's real value in coming together in person, to be able to really look into somebody's eyes and shake their hands for real and see that they actually do have legs and shoes and all the rest.
What do you mean?
So many companies, even ones that have given up the brick and mortar, what they're spending money on now are plane tickets and hotels in order to quarterly bring people together from all over the world. What they find is that there's great value in that, in the connection, and it builds confidence as they get to understand what the subject matter expertise is of each person. Again, it's a team sport. It doesn't happen in a vacuum.
I love that. Yes, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Don't think in a silo, and let's work on a collective scale to grow together, right? Bonnie, I could talk to you all day. It's amazing. So much wealth of wisdom here. And honestly, I would encourage anybody to read your books and connect with you, because you just have so much knowledge in this field and expertise. But what are some of your favorite ways for people to get a hold of you, Bonnie?
LinkedIn is great, Bonnie Low-Kramen. My website, of course, same name, BonnieLowKramen.com. I'm pretty easy to find. And I have plenty of videos on YouTube if you want to check those out. On my website, there's lots of free resources, the blog, podcasts. All of these resources are, yes, I need to make a living, right? And we're all having to pay our bills. At the same time, these resources are all about empowering the people of our workplace so that each day you're even better equipped to go in. We don't want the Sunday scaries. Work should not be a place to be frightened or terrified. Work should not be a place for tears or anger or depression. The only reason there should be crying at work is because you're laughing hysterically. And so in all of those ways, we've got lots of work to do. I hope your audience will check out Staff Matters. If these issues are of concern to you, then that's the reason I wrote Staff Matters.
Yes,
so check it
absolutely. Out. And let's just be honest with ourselves. We need to look at, the numbers. What are our retention rates? And be honest with ourselves and have that honest conversation. But Bonnie, thank you so much for everything today. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
I can't wait for the next interview because I know there's another one coming. I can feel it. But thank you so much for everyone who tuned into the show today. We will catch you on the next episode. Take care. And that's a wrap for this episode of Grasp Confidence. Thank you for joining me today and investing in yourself. Remember, building confidence is an ongoing journey, and each step you take brings you closer to the empowered, fearless version of yourself that you were born to be. Don't forget to visit my website, follow me on social media, and purchase my book, which is available on Amazon. Thank you for listening. We will see you on the next episode. Stay confident.